Welcome again to Mock Speaks. Y'all know how I do. Always cooking the books with a whole new meaning. And whenever I come across some information that I think is useful, I try to share some of that with you guys, right? So I wanna look at evolution a little bit, right? Evolution is an amazing field, amazing science. I wish I was taught more of it at an earlier stage. I'm a grown man now, and I think having being adept or skillful with the information, the data of evolution would put us comprehensively as a race, as a people, in a much better position than we are in now. Just as a societal whole, right? Because the premises of evolution, there's several premises, there's several mechanisms of evolution. We have adaptation, we have natural selection, genetic drift, migration, immigration. These are all different mechanisms of evolution, and they all work in parts that make the whole. But I want to focus specifically on adaptation. And I believe, I read once that the definition of intelligence is a species' ability to adapt to changing conditions. I'll say that again. The definition of intelligence is a species' ability to adapt to changing conditions and or circumstances. So how adept a species is at adapting to changing conditions and circumstances will determine that species' survivability, capacity for survivability, and capacity for thrivability. I don't know if thrivability is a word, but I'm just going to throw that out there. So your capacity to thrive, your ability to survive, your ability to pass your genes on, which is the ultimate purpose of every species anyway, is predicated on your adeptness of adaptation. And I thought that was pretty interesting. So your ability to critically think, to assess and analyze a situation, and then to recalibrate that situation, and then make a decision or a determination that will enhance your ability to thrive, to survive, to stay alive, to continue, just to continue, is the textbook definition of intelligence. And I thought that was interesting because I'm pretty sure the standard definition, people would think intelligence has to do with some kind of, more so book smarts or academia or something like, which it does. But this is just another angle. It's kind of like the word is not kind of, but it's more of ambiguous, where there's multiple meanings. So I thought that was interesting. But adaptation is something that I definitely am in tune with and wanting to share with you guys the importance of understanding that as a species, why adaptation is a necessary component of our survival. And the interesting thing is that most people, adaptation, built into the word adaptation is what? Change, right? Built into the word adaptation is change. Inherent within the definition, the text of adaptation, you find the word change. You find the meaning, you find the connotation, association, implication of change. So when, in terms of being in relationships, two species, two organisms, whatever, embark upon an adventure or an enterprise in terms of coming together. I don't know about you guys, but I've always been confronted with the change. The change aspect in the relationship is usually difficult because no one wants to budge, right? Let's be honest, right? Especially if you're meeting people at a later stage in your lives where you've already adapted to or adjusted certain habits and acquired certain ways of being. It's very difficult to wanting to change or to adapt. And so And not only that, in previous videos, I made mention that we're wired to stay the same. It's called inertia, right? Objects are inherently resistant to change. Built-in matter is an inherent resistance to change. So we're wired that way in our DNA. So it's, you know, and I spoke about that in my previous video, that there are forces out there that works against us, inertia being one, the laws of motion, you know, but the interesting thing though is that when you're in a relationship, right, applying these the science, the physics, the thermodynamics, etc., evolution, applying this wisdom, this knowledge, this information, this data to your relationship, I believe would make it, I don't want to use the word easier, but it will facilitate the process. It will facilitate, mitigate the obstacles. It will mitigate the challenges and put things in proper perspective. Because you got to understand that if I meet you and give using some specifics, you want me to change something that is harmful, that we both can look at, like if we can both be adults, right, and look at what is the change, or what is the adaptation, because the word adaptation I mentioned has change inherent. So what is the adaptation that needs to be made, right? People are afraid of the word change, so we'll use the word adaptation. You got to understand, if I'm being asked by the universe, let's just say the universe, to adapt a certain attitude or mode of being so that it's beneficial for my unit, my union, which is my family, my relationship, whatever, my union to survive, right? Because we survive individually, right? Evolution. But then we also have to survive as a unit, right? As a family, because this is evolution, right? If the adaptation requires me to make changes that might be uncomfortable for me as an individual, but beneficial for my union, for my unit, I can do one of two things. I could resist that change and fail my union, fail my unit. And that's fine. It's not, but it is, if you get what I'm saying, because it's life, whatever. Or I could make the necessary changes or adaptations that's going to enhance or secure or put my union and my unit at a better odds of survivability and viability. The word viability means being able to sustain itself on its own without the dependence or support of anything. So if I want to enhance and advance, enhance and better the survivability of my union, adaptation is necessary, hence the word change. And the question again is, am I being asked to adapt something that is detrimental to me individually, detrimental to my to my union as a whole, to my community, to my society, or am I being asked by the universe? Because I say the universe because I don't want to limit it to a person. Oh, you're asking me to make these changes. You're asking me to make these adaptations. If we do that, then it becomes a personalized type thing, right? And then the emotions and feelings, and then we lose sight of the bigger picture. We don't see the forest for the trees, right? We start to confuse the trees for the forest, etc. So I don't want to say you're asking me to change or I'm asking you to change. I look at it like the universe, right? Yeah, I like to look at it like what's required, like universal laws requires that I do make some adaptations for the embetterment of my union, Now, if I'm an individual and I'm single, I'm not in a relationship, then maybe I don't need to make these adaptations, right? I wouldn't need to make these specific adaptations because to be single requires its own adaptations. But in a union requires a whole nother set. A whole other set of adaptations. So the question then is, do I want to climb the evolutionary scale in terms of building a union, building a unit, and advancing that unit? Because again, that's the ultimate purpose, right? For us to procreate, to produce offspring. They call it genetic drift in terms of evolution, to pass on alleles, to pass on your alleles, which are genes, right, to the gene pool. That's why I always, whenever people talk about passing on your name, having a son that your name could go on, I always think that's like, that is preschool evolution, right? They haven't graduated. They haven't made it to college level or to high school level or even elementary. That's like preschool, because that has nothing to do with evolution. Nowhere in evolutionary mechanisms or mechanics does it say a species must have a male species for its name to live on. Nowhere. And I've studied evolution extensively, comprehensively, and studiously, and I've never come across that yet. I have, however, found that it is a central cornerstone tenet of evolution that fitness is determined or defined as one's or a species' ability to pass on a gene, not a name, but a gene. That gene, it didn't say a male gene or a female gene, or it just said your fitness level is dependent upon your ability to pass on a gene. So if you pass on one gene in terms of the gene pool, your fitness level is 1. If you pass on 2, your fitness level is 2, and so on and so on and so forth. So again, when people, oh, you don't have a son, so that you're not passing on your name, and they use that to beat their chest, it's kind of like a macho thing for men. I get it. But when I hear it, it makes me think, okay, this is an underdeveloped, undereducated person or organism. They don't fully, they still stuck in pre-K in terms of that. It's more of a vanity thing. So I get that. But so getting back on track with the whole relational aspects of evolution and interaction, we got to understand that, look, we're all unique species, right? And on a molecular level and a atomic level, our vibratory molecules, which is thermal energy, I spoke about that in my previous video, is always and constantly in what's called random disorder. I'll say that again, because this right here, this little gem, this little subtle insight, give account for all of our craziness in the world. Our molecular and atomic energetic values or properties are constantly in what's called random disorder on a microscopic level. On a macroscopic level, there's order. It's orderly energy, right? And a very easy example is, imagine a glass of water on a table. If you look at that glass of water, it looks still, everything is orderly, the cup, the water there's absolute, everything is, there's no entropy, everything is fine. That's called a macro. It doesn't look like there's any energy or there's nothing, it's just sitting there. But if you looked at it that's orderly energy. If you look at it on a microscopic scale, there's chaotic energy, because each water molecule is vibrating. And each atom within the molecule is vibrating. So on a microscopic scale, there's motion, there's movement, and that's called random disorder, right? But on a macro scale, it's ordered energy, right? So I say that to say that all of us as human beings, we have molecules, we have atoms. So on a microscopic scale, our energy particles is in random disorder. This is what gives account for all the craziness we see in the world, because eventually that metastasizes, right? So think of it like this. You drink 1 beer, you get a little tipsy. You drink 2, depending on your threshold, obviously. You drink 2, a little bit more tipsy. You drink 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you have a blood alcohol level that's through the roof, right? Now you're in complete chaos, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that depending on how much beer or alcohol we're consuming, our random disorderly energy can metastasize, can grow out of control, spin out of control, and become very violent, right? Our random disorderly microscopic energy can grow on a macroscopic scale. You knock the glass of water over. That glass of water that was sitting at potential and non-kinetic energy, because there was no movement, all of a sudden spills. Now that energy is considered in chaotic state. So I say that to say, like, we are the same way. If we don't monitor and take care of that, we can become disorderly, because naturally that's what we are anyway on a micro scale. But I kind of digressed a little bit and went off a little bit. Don't want to kind of get too dense. I did kind of get dense on you guys, but I say all that to just kind of say, evolutionary wise, we got to remember that in order to keep it's called thermal equilibrium, in order to keep our union our unit, our counterparts, our relationships, whether it's personal or business. It could be anything. We have to understand, though, that it's very important that we understand these laws, these evolutionary laws, understand where we are as a species, what we are, what are we? Molecular chemical creatures, and what is required to keep our molecular chemicals in thermal equilibrium, or dynamic equilibrium, dynamic equilibrium as they also call it, which is balance. So yeah, we gotta adapt. If you want to survive, you have to adapt. That's the definition of intelligence in terms of evolution. So adaptation is the word of the day. Take that with you. And if you're in relationships and you don't want to make changes and you don't want to give this up and make this and that, it's part. Listen, you don't have to. You just won't. You won't climb the evolutionary scale. You won't be the survival of the fittest. You won't. You would continue the state that the world is in right now. Most of the world, not everybody, but most of it. You would be contributing to the disorder, to the disorderly, the disorganization or the disorder of the species on the planet. You'll just be contributing to that. You're very small, microscopic, allotment. You're allotting a very tiny portion towards that. Or you can be the person that is actually contributing to the other field, or the other side, the other team, which is advancing the evolutionary scale, making your society, your world a better place to be in. All right, till next time, y'all know what I'm going to be doing, cooking up these books with a whole new meaning.